The African sun beats down on a continent, awakening to a new century. It is the year 2000, a time of sprawling ambitions and growing cities hungry for power. South Africa stands at the vanguard, an industrial giant fueled by deep veins of coal. The furnaces burn day and night, sending plumes of smoke into the sky. The rhythm of the nation is the rumble of turbines and the clatter of conveyor belts moving coal to the fire. The national operator wins the Power Company of the Year award, cementing its dominance. Yet beneath this triumph, the seeds of a monumental shift are taking root. The winds of change are beginning to gather force. As the new millennium unfolds, the demand for electricity surges across the continent. Morocco, Angola, and Guinea watch closely. They understand that power is the lifeblood of progress. Without it, factories stand still and economies stagnate. South Africa becomes a founding member of the African Energy Commission, signaling a desire to lead in vision. But the reliance on coal is heavy. Turbines roar with a familiar rhythm, while massive rivers, the blazing sun, and coastal winds remain largely untapped, ignored in favor of fossil fuels. In 2002, the eyes of the world turned to Johannesburg. South Africa hosts the World Summit on Sustainable Development. Discussions are intense. The pressure to rethink energy is palpable. Coal plants produce vast amounts of electricity, feeding a ravenous economy, but whispers of change echo through the corridors of power. International delegates bring warnings of climate shifts. The following year, the government publishes the White Paper on Renewable Energy Policy. It is a quiet document, overshadowed by traditional megawatt figures, yet it lays the first stone for a future built on wind and sun. It is a declaration of intent in a carbon-intensive era. 2004 brings structure. The National Energy Regulator of South Africa is established, providing a framework for the expanding grid. Meanwhile, power lines stretch further into the dark, illuminating new neighborhoods. Production climbs steadily, driving the economy forward. Then, in 2005, a critical shift occurs. The government sets a target for new renewable energy generation. It is a small step, a mere drop in an ocean of coal power. But the intention is clear. The era of pure carbon dominance is beginning to crack, revealing a path toward a sustainable future. But the hunger for power outpaces innovation. By 2006, the strain on the national grid is evident. The margin between supply and demand narrows dangerously. The utility announces plans to return mothballed power stations to service. Old coal giants are awakened. Their furnaces are reignited to feed the booming economy. Production figures surge once more, pushing the limits of aging infrastructure. Morocco watches, beginning to harness its own sun, laying out solar reflectors in the desert. Angola taps rivers for hydropower, but South Africa remains the undisputed king of the grid, driven almost entirely by black rock. 2007 marks a polarizing moment. Construction begins on the Medupi coal power station. It is a testament to the old way, designed to secure the nation's energy future for decades to come. The earth is moved in massive quantities, and the skyline is altered. Yet the warning signs are flashing red. The infrastructure is groaning. The very next year, the unimaginable happens. South Africa experiences its first major wave of national load shedding. Lights go out across major cities. Factories fall silent. The mighty grid falters, unable to sustain the rhythm of the nation. The illusion of uninterrupted power is shattered. The darkness brings a reckoning. In 2009, the Integrated Resource Plan for Electricity is introduced. The realization sets in that the old ways are no longer sufficient. Generation metrics remain high, casting a tall shadow over the continent, but the fundamental vulnerability is exposed for all to see. The continent watches as the giant struggles to keep the lights on, balancing precariously between growth and collapse. The following year, the government finalizes the Integrated Resource Plan, highlighting renewable energy goals. The conversation shifts from if we transition to when and how fast. The sweeping winds and punishing sun are no longer just environmental elements. They are the undeniable future of energy security. Then comes 2011, a watershed moment. South Africa launches the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producer Procurement Program. It is a bold, open invitation to the world to build an entirely new energy landscape. The response is immediate. The first bidding window attracts significant international investment, bringing billions of dollars in new technology to the southern tip of Africa. The physical landscape begins to change visibly. Solar panels, arranged in precise patterns, mirror the sky. Wind turbines rise like modern sentinels against the horizon. Renewable generation finally breaks away from the flat line of the past, beginning a sharp, upward trajectory. By 2013, the momentum of the transition is undeniable. Construction begins on the Jasper Solar Energy Project in the Northern Cape. The sheer scale is breathtaking, a monument to a new era of power generation. Thousands of mirrors capture the African sun, turning pure light into electric life. The very next year, the Jasper project becomes fully operational. Recognized as one of the largest solar plants in Africa, the renewable metric surges forward, a bright line rising against the struggling backdrop of total power generation. South Africa is actively reinventing itself, fighting the legacy of coal, one clean megawatt at a time. But the old world fights back. In 2015, the first unit of the Medupi power station synchronizes to the national grid. The coal beast breathes fire once more, pushing total generation figures higher. It is a stark dual reality: the persistence of coal attempting to secure the baseload, and the urgent rise of renewables pushing from the edges. The tension is a profound drama played out across the power lines. The following year, the Sear Wind Farm is officially inaugurated in the Western Cape. Dozens of blades slice through the coastal air, generating continuous, clean power, a vibrant contrast to the thick smoke still rising from the highveld. 2017 brings a sudden pause. The Ministry of Energy announces updates to the Integrated Resource Plan. The transition is not without stumbling blocks. Political changes in the inertia of a historically coal-dependent economy slow the pace of the rollout. Dozens of finalized projects are delayed. The renewable line on the chart hesitates, losing its upward slope. It is a period of intense frustration and uncertainty, but the movement does not stop entirely. Finally, in 2018, a breakthrough occurs. The Minister of Energy formally signs agreements for the delayed renewable energy projects. The bureaucratic dam breaks. A new wave of clean energy projects floods into the pipeline, and momentum is restored. The environmental toll of past centuries demands a heavy price, and global pressure mounts. In 2019, the Carbon Tax Act is formally signed into law to encourage reduced greenhouse gas emissions. The old ways of burning fossil fuels are becoming financially and politically expensive. The world is watching. The climate is changing. The renewable sector feels a tailwind as the economic equations shift in its favor. But then, the world comes to a halt. 2020. A global pandemic sweeps across the planet. Yet despite heavily reduced economic activity during strict lockdowns, South Africa experiences severe load shedding. The fragility of the aging coal fleet is laid bare. The need for a decentralized, reliable, and renewable future becomes an absolute necessity. The urgency forces action. In 2021, the government profoundly amends energy regulations to allow private power generation up to 100 megawatts without requiring a license. It is a historic unchaining of the market. Heavy industries, mining operations, and private companies rush to build their own dedicated solar and wind plants. The landscape of power generation is rapidly democratized. Power is no longer the sole, protected domain of the state monopoly. The renewable trajectory steepens sharply, climbing with renewed vigor. Finally, recognizing the limits of the old system, in 2022, President Ramaphosa announces an energy crisis plan, removing the licensing threshold completely. The floodgates swing open, inviting unlimited private investment into the clean energy sector. The transformation over these 22 years is profound. From a nation built entirely on fossil fuels, South Africa has carved out a challenging but inevitable new path. The absolute dominance of total generation by coal is fundamentally challenged, permanently altered by the unstoppable rise of renewables. Morocco, Kenya, and Egypt are following similar trajectories, building vast solar parks and wind farms. But the struggle in the south is the most dramatic. The wind sweeping off the oceans and the intense sun beating down on the interior are recognized as the pillars of tomorrow's economy. As the timeline reaches its conclusion, the picture is clear. A new, complex, and highly resilient grid is being born from the ashes of the old. The power shift is not just reflected in the numbers, it is woven into the very fabric of the continent's future. The era of unchecked carbon is no longer unquestioned.